celebrations. Never once did they shout for me out in all my time there. Yeah, odd games, you know, where we had bad defeats, they were a little bit upset, which is right, because it's a massive club and we did have some poor results along that time. But I think generally, most people, I think, would say that they enjoyed the football that I played.
Most fans thought Horton had done well to keep a faltering side in the Premiership on a meagre budget. But at the end of his second season in charge, he was sacked. Lee brought in his old teammate and friend Alan Ball. Results didn't improve, and the last game of the 1996 season saw City having to beat Liverpool to ensure they stayed in the Premiership.
Over the head of Ruddock, Mark Wright's there, and here's McManaman. Driven into the 6-yard box, and it's an own goal, is it? Rush is free, there's Fowler, it's 3 Liverpool attackers on 2 defenders. It's deflected, it's 2. There's tight control in the penalty area, obstructed by Ruddock, penalty. Now, Rossler to peg one back for City. It's 2-1 to Liverpool. Here's Phillips. Rossler, yes! Kit Simons, it's 2-2.
A draw, though, wasn't enough to save them, and goal difference sealed their fate. Former City favourite Joe Corrigan was by now part of the Liverpool coaching staff.
And at 2-2, they go down. And I walked up the tunnel and all the City players were sitting down on the sides of the tunnel, you know, that I'd walked up and down many, many times, crying. And I felt like crying with them.
Several managers then came and went in quick succession. Being boss at City was proving a precarious business. Ball left in August. Asa Hartford became caretaker before Steve Coppell was then appointed in October. He lasted just 32 days before sensationally quitting, citing health problems, and Phil Neal took over as his caretaker boss. Neal lasted longer as caretaker than Coppell did as manager before Frank Clark took over in Christmas '97. He initially arrested the decline, with Georgian international Georgie Kinkladze providing rare glimpses of what might have been.
A little bit of space now for Kinkladze. Away from Berkovic, away from Potts. Great run by Kinkladze. Yes!
The 97-98 campaign was one of optimism for the Blues. The opening game saw a capacity crowd against Portsmouth.
We went on the pitch during the commercial break and the guy said, just go into the centre circle, you know, wave to the fans and come back off. We were like, ah, might never get to do this again. So we've done a pseudo lap of honour. And they come back and apparently the footage of Richard Key saying, yes, well, we'd actually, the teams are waiting to come on the pitch, but apparently there's some people on the pitch. And there's me, Griggs and our kid.
City failed to live up to expectation, and by March 1998 were just 3 places off the bottom. Clark was sacked. Brought in to replace him was a man that Manchester City fans had wanted in the job for years, Joe Royle.
I got the call on the mobile from Dennis Stewart, and he said that things are happening and we'd like you to take over till the end of the season. We don't know who's going to be there at the end of the season, so that's all we can offer you. We don't know who's going to be on the board, we don't know who the owners are. There was great uncertainty about the club at that time.
It was then that Francis Lee stepped down to make way for a new board, headed by chairman David Bernstein.
I was asked by really all the main shareholders and the directors if I take the job. And of course, you know, I gave it some serious thought, although I must say not for very long. And pretty quickly came to the conclusion that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be chairman of the club that I'd, loved, and was probably outside my family. It was probably the biggest thing in my life in many ways.
We literally, with the chairman, the new chairman David Bernstein came on board and John Wardle came on board, we literally stripped the club bare, operationally, structurally, and applied a lot of professional principles in there. And obviously we got Joe involved, which is obviously Joe came too late to save us for the first instance, going down to the second division. But I've known Joe for 20 odd years. You know, he's a man of immense experience and knowledge, and we started right at the grassroots and start building it up.
Sadly, there just wasn't enough time for Royle to save City from relegation, and for the first time in their proud history, the third tier of professional football beckoned.
All that will take.
Gota! Great save, Southall, but Dickoff fires in the rebound. And that's the end of the contest. Manchester City win it by 5-2, but I'm sure news has filtered through to Joe Royle that despite every effort today, their side has gone down along with Stoke, who they beat today.
At the end of that season, despite relegation, myself and Willie were offered new 3-year contracts, which we gladly accepted. And I think that the club now is as stable as it's been for a long time at all levels.
Nobody was quite sure what to expect in the second division. One thing that was for certain was that City were a glamorous scalp. There was genuine concern that even City's loyal fan base would be tested to its limit. They needn't have worried.
The fans stood by us, which I've used the phrase defied logic many times, and it does defy logic. They'd had a bellyful. You know, they'd seen all the relegation twice in 3 years, the big names come and go, and here we were with a working class team in a working class division.
The loyalty of the fans in the circumstances was quite amazing, and also not just the loyalty but the atmosphere, because somehow there was a sympathetic atmosphere. You know, it wasn't hostile. The support I had, you know, in those days was absolutely fantastic and very encouraging and very rewarding.
Royle knew the second division was as much a test of character as it was ability, and strengthened accordingly.
From the moment he came in, really, if there's one player, if there's one £40,000 that was well spent, I mean, we can look back at Andy Morrison and say thank you.
Notable too that year was the form of their young keeper, Nicky Weaver.
It probably took us 6 months to get to grips with the second division. We were getting roughed up a lot by a lot of the long ball teams, and it wasn't probably till around Christmas time and Andy Morrison signing for the club that we started to pick up, and after Christmas we just went on a run, something like 24 games and 1 defeat, something like that, and that's what got us promoted in the end, really.
With the fans' unwavering support and with the addition of raw steel, City made it to the playoffs. Their semi-final opponents were Wigan, and as history has so often proved, the Blues' best-laid plans soon went awry. That's a dreadful error, and what a start for Wigan Athletic, and what a disaster for Manchester City. Stuart Barlow inside 20 seconds. Now Michael Brown. Allsop up ahead of him. Taylor on the far post. Dickoff is as well. Dickoff! Majestic! Fabulous goal from Paul Dickoff. And that's it. Even Stevens to take to the second leg. Manchester City know that Wigan have to score at Main Road in the second leg. City hadn't lost to Wigan in their previous 3 meetings that season and weren't about to do so this time either. Wycliffe. Now Brown. Horlock. Gota! It's in! But Manchester City celebrate, and the referee has given the goal. Well, if you're a neutral, it's still unbearable. It's over now. Manchester City are at Wembley. Gillingham awaited in a game which City simply had to win.
In many ways, it was the biggest game in the club's history. I mean, winning leagues and winning cups is fantastic, but getting out of that sort of problem and the implications, if we hadn't got out of that second division fairly quickly, didn't bear thinking about.
That wasn't a game, that was an event. You know, that was a preordained event. There is no other reason to explain what happened at Wembley. I'm tingling now talking about it, and I still regularly watch it. The chairman's video is worn out of it.
And this could still be won by either side. Nice ball inside by Asaba. Paul Smith turns, good ball, Carlos Asaba, real chance, he scored! Carlos Asaba has scored for Gillingham! Long kick by Vince Bartram, more space now for Carlos Asaba, great touch, Robert Taylor here has room, tries from range, he scored! Robert Taylor has scored! And Gillingham are heading into Division 1! That's game over.
I'd seen the playoff final the day before and Scunthorpe had been promoted. to the second division. And it was going through my mind, it looks like Scunny next year, you know, it looks like we're going to Scunny.
So when they scored their first goal and then a second goal, and this huge scoreboard, Gillingham 2 and Manchester City 0, and their fans, you know, were singing as they were entitled to do, it felt pretty awful, and the thoughts flashed through my head about, well, what do we do now, and how do we deal with next season and so on, were, you know, very strong and not very pleasant.
Ian Bishop links up again, chance here for Sean Gota, tackle comes in, Kevin Horlock has driven that into the back of the net, and I wonder if there will be a late twist here.
The game is not over yet, I said that.
Lumped forward though by Weekens. Comes now for Gota, can't get his shot in, Dickoff, he scored! Paul Dickoff has scored for Manchester City, and Gillingham can't believe it! And now we have penalties. And if we've seen some drama already, that's nothing compared with what's coming up next. Horlock, who scored for City in normal time. Can he beat Bartram? He can. Good penalty. Huge wall of noise. Will Smith keep his nerve? No, he won't. Nicky Weaver has saved it. Paul Dickoff, who was best man at Vince Bartram's wedding, and vice versa. Can he beat his best man? Dickoff, off the post, and Gillingham are back in it. And the noise reaches a crescendo behind that goal. Adrian Pennock. And Pennock has fired it well wide of the goal. Not a good penalty. And now it's Terry Cook. Hasn't had the best of games. You would expect him to score though, and he does. Gillingham have yet to score in this penalty shootout. Can John Hodge change that? Yes, he can. Good penalty. Can Edge Hill score? He does. Just under the bar. Gillingham have to score this. Guy Butters with the responsibility. Deafening sound. Guy Butters must score. He doesn't. He's missed. It's saved by Nicky Weaver. And Manchester City are back in the first division. That is quite an astonishing game.
I knew I was going to save the last penalty. For some reason, I don't know why, I just knew I was going to save it. And then I saved it, and I set off on that run, and I didn't really know what to do. And I've waved the lads over, and they just chased me around. And I must have run about 200 yards, but it felt after like another marathon.
Definitely, it was the big finger coming out the sky, you know, your time's come. And I think again, that one was the fans. They'd been trolling around the lower divisions, they'd been relegated twice in 3 years, and somebody somewhere said, you know, this one's for you.
Joe always said we want to change this losing culture into a winning culture, and it's happened, and that, to me, really epitomised that.
It only sunk in when I see my little boy there. My wife took my little boy there, and it didn't really sink till I actually see him in the crowd. And then you choke and you fill up. And
it was one of them games that if we didn't win that game, you would have been very concerned for the future of the club, as it was important for the older generation of fans, because, you know, not that they would have deserted the club, but the momentum would have been lost.
We just got on the motorway and come home. And there was not a lot said in the car coming home, and we were passing coaches of fans, and the coaches weren't singing and rocking like normally. There were just people sat there, and they looked physically drained. And I thought, yeah, that's been a game of football I'll never forget.
I think the fact we won that game and the way we won it, the fact that people felt at last, you know, even if we deserved it, fortune had changed for us, is something standing us in very good stead now.
Paul Dickoff's late equaliser and Nicky Weaver's heroics ensured City a remarkable comeback and returned them to the First Division. In their first season back, they were rarely out of the top two, yet somehow their promotion to the Premiership couldn't be confirmed until...
They gave everything, but they're now looking very much second best.